Their logistics network blanketed the entire United States. Prime had 230 million subscribers. They had spent 2 decades making 2-day delivery feel like a basic human right. No one in retail, finance, or technology seriously believed anything could threaten that position in the near term. Then an orange app with a cartoon shopping bag started appearing on American phones. It did not sneak in, it detonated. Within 60 days of launching in the US in September 2022, Temu was the most downloaded free app in the country. By early 2023, it had crossed 100 million downloads globally. By 2024, it was operating in 49 countries, spending more on digital advertising than almost any brand in American history, and reportedly shipping an estimated 1 million packages per day into the United States alone. Amazon executives noticed. So did Walmart. So did Shine, which had itself only recently upended fast fashion, and now watched its own downloads collapse against a newer, hungrier competitor. What nobody fully understood at first, including the analysts, the trade economists, and the retail giants paying close attention, was that Temu was not competing on product quality, delivery speed, or customer service. It was competing on something older and more powerful than any of those things. It was competing on how the human brain works, and it had clearly done its homework. The prices seem impossible, the app feels like a game, and somewhere in the middle of that fun, something is being taken from you that you cannot see and may not get back. Open the Temu app for the first time, and something feels slightly off. Not bad exactly, just unfamiliar. There is a spinning roulette wheel offering you a prize. There is a countdown timer telling you that the item you're looking at, a phone case, a kitchen gadget, a pair of sunglasses, costs 70% less than yesterday, but only for the next 14 minutes. There is a badge telling you 37 other people are looking at this product right now. There is a progress bar telling you that if you spend $2 more, you unlock free shipping. None of this is accidental, and every single one of those elements is a precision instrument borrowed from casino design and behavioral psychology. The roulette wheel activates the same neurological reward loop as a slot machine. The countdown timer creates urgency that does not exist. The others are watching. Notification exploits social scarcity, the fear of missing out on something other people want. The progress bar is what behavioral scientists call a completion loop. Your brain hates an unfinished bar, it wants to close the gap. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Consumer Psychology confirmed that artificial scarcity cues like countdown timers increase purchase likelihood by up to 30%, even when consumers consciously know the timer is fabricated. Temu did not stumble onto these tricks. The parent company, PDD Holdings, tested every single one of them on the Chinese market through Pinduoduo before exporting the entire playbook to the West. By the time it landed in America, it had already been tested on over 1 billion people. You were not the test group, you were the rollout. Very few people in the West know the name Colin Huang. That is partly by design. Huang founded Pinduoduo in 2015 in Shanghai after stints at Google and a series of earlier Chinese tech ventures. His insight was deceptively simple. He noticed that rural Chinese consumers were being ignored by the major e-commerce platforms, which were chasing urban middle-class buyers. He built a platform engineered specifically for price-sensitive shoppers, using social sharing mechanics to drive group discounts. If you have 3 friends to buy the same product together, the price drops. It spread like a chain reaction across WeChat. By 2018, Pinduoduo had more active buyers than JD.com, China's second-largest e-commerce platform, which had been operating for over a decade. By 2020, Pinduoduo had crossed 700 million active users. Huang became one of the wealthiest people in Asia, with a peak net worth estimated at over $50 billion. Then he stepped down as CEO in 2021, citing a desire to focus on research. He handed operational control to a trusted lieutenant and largely disappeared from public view. He had watched what happened to Jack Ma after the Chinese government decided that visibility had become a liability. Wang chose invisibility instead. But Pinduoduo kept growing, and in 2022 it launched a new international vehicle under a new name, Temu. The same ruthless pricing logic, the same gamified interface, the same squeeze every margin supply chain model, aimed at a market that had never seen anything like it and had no framework for understanding what it actually was. If you're finding value in this breakdown, subscribe and hit the notification bell. What comes next is where the story turns dark. The standard retail supply chain in the West is a relay race. A factory in China manufactures the product. A trading company buys it in bulk. An importer brings it into the country. A distributor moves it to a regional warehouse. A retailer puts it on a shelf or in a fulfillment center. The consumer buys it. Every single one of those hands takes a cut. Temu eliminated most of that race. Their model is called fully managed, and it is genuinely brilliant in its simplicity. Factories in China list directly on Temu's platform. Temu's algorithm sets pricing, handles all customer acquisition, controls all marketing, and manages the entire logistics chain from the factory floor to the customer's front door. The factory makes the product. Temu does everything else. There are no middlemen, no importers, no regional distributors, no retail markup. A factory in Guangdong that makes a phone case for 60 cents ships it directly to an address in Ohio. Temu handles the customs documentation, final mile delivery through partners like UPS and USPS, and all customer service. This is why a phone case can legitimately cost $1.11 and still reach your door. The per-unit economics, stripped of every traditional markup layer, genuinely support those prices at the factory level. The problem is that even at those stripped-back costs, Temu is still losing money on most orders. The shipping alone often exceeds the product value. So how are they sustaining it? And why would any company with shareholders deliberately bleed cash at this scale? That question has a very specific answer, and it is not the one they put in their investor presentations. Shop like a billionaire! That is the tagline Temu ran during its Super Bowl debut in 2023. They did not run it once. They ran it 6 times across the broadcast, spending an estimated $14 million on airtime alone for a single game. It was one of the most aggressive product launches in Super Bowl advertising history, from a brand that had existed in the United States for less than 6 months. The campaign worked. App downloads spiked by 400% in the days following the game. Temu's messaging was consistent and deliberate. They were democratizing access to quality goods. They were cutting out the overpriced middlemen. They were giving ordinary people access to products that used to be available only to the wealthy. It was a compelling story. And like most compelling stories told by billion-dollar companies, it contained a carefully selected portion of the truth. Yes, the prices were real. Yes, the products were reaching American consumers at costs that Amazon and Walmart genuinely could not match. Yes, the supply chain efficiencies were legitimate. The shop like a billionaire narrative was not fraudulent on its face. It was incomplete. Because the billionaire the slogan was really serving was not the American consumer filling a cart with kitchen gadgets. It was Colin Huang and PDD Holdings building something far more valuable than a retail business. They were building a data set. And the Super Bowl was just the most cost-effective customer acquisition event in the history of consumer surveillance. But before we get to that, there is a piece of the economic machinery that almost no mainstream outlet covered properly. It is the single reason Temu's prices were ever possible at all. And when you understand it, the entire operation suddenly looks less like a discount store and more like a calculated exploit. In 1938, the United States government created a customs exemption called de minimis. The logic was straightforward. Taxing every small individual package crossing the border costs more to administer than the tax revenue it actually generates. So Congress set a threshold below which no duties applied. For decades, that threshold sat at a few $100s and barely mattered because international e-commerce barely existed. In 2016, Congress raised the threshold to $800. Nobody anticipated what that number would become. Under the de minimis rules, any individual package valued under $800 entering the United States is exempt from import duties and tariffs. It enters with minimal customs inspection. It bypasses the same trade barriers that apply to bulk commercial shipments. In 2023, the United States processed an estimated 1 billion de minimis packages. Roughly half came from China. A significant share came from Temu and Shein alone. This meant that while an American manufacturer importing goods from China in bulk paid tariffs of up to 25% under Section 301, Temu was shipping the same categories of goods to individual American addresses completely duty-free. Product by product, one package at a time. at a volume that made it the functional equivalent of a bulk importer with none of the associated costs. The American Apparel and Footwear Association estimated the US government was losing approximately $80 billion per year in uncollected tariff revenue from de minimis exemptions by 2024. Temu did not create this loophole. They simply used it at a scale the legislators who wrote the rule never contemplated in their most creative moments. In fiscal year 2023, PDD Holdings reported sales and marketing expenses of approximately 68 billion yuan, roughly $9 billion globally. That number tells you something important about the underlying strategy. Temu was acquiring American customers at an estimated cost of between $100 and $150 per user, according to independent analyst estimates cited by Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal. Standard retail economics suggests that a customer acquisition cost that high only makes sense if the lifetime value of that customer is significantly higher. Amazon estimates its Prime subscriber lifetime value in the range of $2,000 across a multi-year relationship. Temu's problem is that most of its customers are not building loyalty to Temu. They are buying cheap products once, often returning them and churning. CICC, one of China's largest investment banks, estimated in 2023 that Temu was losing somewhere between $30 and $40 on every single order shipped to the United States, once you factored in shipping costs, platform subsidies, and customer acquisition overhead. At 1 million packages per day, that is a daily cash burn running into the tens of millions of dollars. PDD Holdings can absorb this because Pinduoduo, the original Chinese platform, is extraordinarily profitable. The parent company reported a net income of approximately 94 billion yuan in 2023, roughly $13 billion. They're using Pinduoduo profits to fund a land grab in Western markets, betting that scale and penetration today will produce returns at some future point. Whether that future ever arrives is the question every serious investor is now asking. Here is where it stops being a retail story and becomes something else entirely. In March 2023, Google suspended Pinduoduo from the Play Store after cybersecurity researchers discovered the app contained code capable of escalating device privileges, bypassing phone security settings, and accessing data from other applications installed on the same device. This was the Chinese domestic Pinduoduo app, not Temu, but the parent company was identical. The engineering teams overlapped. Temu came under separate scrutiny shortly after. In late 2023, Grizzly Research, a short-selling firm, published a detailed technical report claiming that Temu's app contained code designed to extract significantly more data from user devices than any shopping application could reasonably require. The report alleged the app requested permissions to access device microphones, cameras, contact lists, location data, and clipboard content. It alleged the app used obfuscated code to conceal its data transmission functions from standard review processes. Temu denied the findings. Legal proceedings are ongoing. What is documented is this: Temu's privacy policy, as of 2025, reserves the right to share user data with third parties under broadly and ambiguously defined terms. It collects biometric identifiers, browsing history, purchase behavior, device fingerprints, and precise geolocation data. In 2024, the US House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party specifically named Temu in its investigation into Chinese applications with potential national security implications. Arkansas filed a lawsuit against Temu, citing data privacy violations under state consumer protection law. The average Temu user downloaded the app to buy a $7 kitchen sponge. What they handed over in exchange has a value that no price tag on the platform comes close to representing. The factory-to-your-door model sounds elegant until you follow the chain back to the factory itself. Temu's fully managed model gives the platform near total control over pricing. Factories that list on Temu do not negotiate. They accept the price Temu's algorithm sets, or they do not participate. For most small manufacturers in China's export-dependent industrial regions, walking away is not a real option. The platform represents volume that they cannot replace. The result is a margin compression that has been described by multiple investigative outlets as extreme. Channel 4, News and the Financial Times, both published investigations in 2023 and 2024 documenting Temu suppliers operating on margins below 1%. Factory owners described a pattern where Temu would agree to a price, then deduct penalties for minor quality complaints after delivery, pushing the effective margin into negative territory. The factories had already manufactured the goods. They absorbed the loss anyway. Labour conditions at the end of that supply chain are consistent with what you would expect when margins are that thin. In 2024, a coalition of US senators sent a formal letter to Temu demanding evidence that its supply chain complied with the Uyghur Forced Labour Prevention Act, which prohibits importing goods produced using forced labour in Xinjiang. Temu's response was widely considered inadequate by the senators who received it. The consumer sees a $1 item on a screen and clicks buy. The platform processes the transaction in seconds. Somewhere in a factory in Guangdong or Zhejiang, a person made that item for a fraction of that dollar. The supply chain is not invisible. It is just designed to feel that way. Here is where things stand in 2025 going into 2026. The de minimis loophole that powered Temu's pricing model is closing. The Biden administration moved to restrict it in 2024. The Trump administration went further in early 2025, signing an executive order eliminating the exemption for packages originating from China. Temu began raising prices almost immediately. In some product categories, prices increased by over 100% within weeks of the policy change. The shop like a billionaire era, to the extent it was ever real, is functionally over. But the damage to consumer psychology is already done. A generation of American shoppers has been conditioned to expect $5 Bluetooth speakers, $1 phone cases, and $3 kitchen tools delivered to their front door in under 2 weeks. That expectation does not disappear when the price doubles. It creates resentment. It makes normally priced goods from domestic manufacturers feel like a rip-off by comparison. Temu did not just sell cheap products, it rewired what cheap is supposed to feel like. Meanwhile, American retail has not recovered the ground it lost. Tens of thousands of small businesses that could not compete on price have not come back. The jobs are not coming back either. Temu is not a shopping app. It is the most successful behavioral experiment in the history of consumer technology, funded by a surveillance infrastructure, run through a legal loophole, built on a supply chain that externalizes every cost onto someone else, and wrapped in a UI designed to make all of it feel like a game you are winning. The final price of a $1 smartwatch is not $1. It never was. If this changed how you see the